RWBY Ice Queendom has officially released, so let me break it down for you. I say that it's officially released, but they seem to be doing a special thing right now where they put out the first 3 episodes as one big compilation, and over the next few weeks they will be releasing the episodes individually. So we get episode 4 in like 1 month from now, so, you know, whatever. Who cares? What did I think about what I saw? It was pretty damn good. So to start things off, I guess I should clear up what exactly this show is. I, along with many viewers upon first seeing the trailer, wasn't sure if this was a reboot, an alternate universe, a retelling, or what have you. But upon watching it, it seems that it is meant to be canon and fit into the already established timeline of RWBY. I know, sad times for those who wanted a new timeline, but it seems that everything that is going to happen is going to stem from a new Grimm which inflicts nightmares upon people. So theoretically, this whole series is going to be a literal world inside Weiss's mind, and we get a look into what she's scared of or scared of becoming, things like that. I say this with uncertainty because the first 3 episodes don't dwell too much on this new story because it's spent retelling the events of Volume 1. From the trailers all the way up to the end of Black and White, it's essentially a 1-hour recap of the 2-hour volume. But there are changes from the original show, so maybe it's a new timeline. Regardless, there's not too much to say as you might think with 3 episodes. I'll start off with the animation and slowly work my way into more spoilers. Now, I think this show so far has looked absolutely stunning in terms of animation. RWBY, especially Volume 1 and 2, really can benefit from this updated new studio animation. I love the way this looks, I love the way that it's shot. Overall, I think the series is just beautiful. Sun even has a noticeable tan, which for some reason impressed me, but damn, he looks good. If the animation falls short anywhere, I would say it was during the fight scenes. I don't think there was a single fight scene that was shown so far that had even come close to what Monty did. We have Weiss's from the White trailer, along with Blake and Adam on the train during the Black trailer, which surprised me that we got that. If anything, I think RWBY versus Roman's goons at the Dust Shop clearly had a higher budget than everything else, and so was the best fight. But things like the Nevermore fight and the Scorpion fight were actually not great at all. I mean, they're not bad, they're serviceable as fight scenes and more like the modern era of RWBY, which just also doesn't impress me, but having to do their own recreation of Monty's fights just didn't work for me. Even during Weiss's fight here, it had stakes, but for different reasons. She's trying to go to Beacon, everyone's watching her, and she wants to prove herself, while the White trailer was a lot more interpretive. The whole thing was like a dance, it had a soundtrack to accompany it, and the music was effectively made for that scene. And a lot of Monty's fights were like that. He told his story through action, and I don't think losing the music by Casey and Jeff was a bad thing. I mean, I think they could have grabbed a couple songs, but I'm really enjoying the original soundtrack that they have so far. So yeah, the fight scenes, just because I know how they were supposed to be and flow like, felt a lot more stiff and just didn't hit the same. More than anything, I was a fan of a lot of the smaller changes they made. A lot of them were just more context, like Weiss fighting the Armagigas. We see Klein come to get her, she has an interaction with Whitley, who, I might add, this series immediately shows that there's more to him than meets the eye. There's definitely a lot more anime tropes done here as well, like characters who will continue to speak aloud about their emotions for the sake of the audience. I've never been against this, I prefer it actually. I did notice that traditional RWBY never did this, and I think a lot of the more nuanced characters suffer because they get painted in a very black and white point of view, like Whitley, who everyone hated for years until recent volumes where everyone started pretending like they always loved him. I'll never forget that. I was one of the only people defending him. But right out of the gate, wouldn't you know it, episode 1 shows that he's not what he appears. And I don't even think he's gonna play a big role in this story. They might have thrown this in for no reason at all other than just to cut my boy some slack. And speaking of the Schnees, Jacques couldn't feel like a more different character. I've always gotten this feeling that in the actual show, no one liked Jacques, and I'm talking about the writers, the animators, literally everyone behind the scenes who worked on this man. They hated him so much that he was always disrespected and treated like a joke character because he was a bad person and thus didn't deserve any respect. But here, Jesus Christ, look at this man and listen to what he sounds like.
お前のわがままもそれまでだ。
This is a man who runs a cruel and unethical business with an iron fist. Also, the confrontation with Blake and Weiss arguing over the white fang I liked. They added dialogue where Weiss asks if Blake had ever been to any of the funerals that those members had killed, and that was just like a real moment. Like, yeah, logically Weiss probably knows tons of Schnee Company workers who are family friends who had been targeted and killed where she had to go to their funerals. It's a much more genuine reason to despise an organization other than the fact that they're animals who don't like the company. But anyway, one of the other changes I liked was the inclusion of Tai. Yang and RWBY aren't living on their own, so we just get a lot more scenes where he's chilling with Zwei. But also, he passes down some advice, which changes a scene from Volume 1, which I liked. He talks to Yang about how it's great that she's always supporting her sister, but she needs to become more independent. And that's why during their initiation, Yang is hesitant to hang around RWBY when she says that she's shy and doesn't know anyone. In the show, she just ditches her for some shadow people that we never see or hear from again. But here, Yang wants RWBY to be more independent like Tai asked, and so tries nudging her in the direction of strangers, which is what leads her to meeting Blake and Weiss. So I love that change. I also love the fact that he and Yang follow the trail of RWBY's carnage and are there when she winds up at the police station. And this gave me an interaction that I've always been curious about but literally just haven't seen. And that's Tai and Ozpin. I'd always wondered how Tai felt about Ozpin because theoretically Summer is dead because of him. Team Stark was the team. They were his eyes and ears and his most trusted asset at the time. But yet their leader Summer is dead. Raven hates Ozpin, Crow still works with him, but only under deception, and Tai I guess would also be under deception, but he seems to have retired from Grim hunting. I mean, he still wears his armor in his house while he's relaxing, which is kind of weird. But we've never seen him fight any Grim or anything in modern day, so it's like he gave up once Raven left and Summer died. He could just be really cool about it, knowing Summer was who she was and she died fighting for what she believed in and doesn't blame Ozpin. But it always struck me as odd that Tai would just allow his kids to effectively fall into the exact same scenario he was in and do it with a smile on his face. This scene doesn't do anything special, but it gave me an interaction that I've been wanting to see for a long time. RWBY, Yang, and Tai really feel like a family here, and that's been one of my biggest problems when it comes to the main show. I never feel like RWBY and Yang are sisters, but watching this, I get a nice feeling when they're together. In terms of actual story changed, I touched upon it at the beginning, but we are introduced to a new character named Xion Zidon. She is a nightmare hunter who hunts a very specific Grim known as nightmares. It is a type of Grim which possesses a human and grows by draining their aura. The infected victim becomes trapped within their dreams as their body becomes a breeding ground for Grim. The nightmare can only be taken out from within the dream, which can only be accessed by close friends. It is her job to find these nightmares and stop them, or help out those who have become infected. Those who are more sensitive or emotionally conflicted are more likely to be targeted. The story changes as during the Emerald Forest initiation, Weiss and Jean become infected by the Grim. Jean, for having forged his way into the school, is the first one who falls victim to the nightmare a few days later. Jean comes in to do her thing and Team Juniper enter his dream and save him from the nightmare. Fortunately, since his aura is weak and he doesn't have a semblance, the Grim wasn't able to siphon off much from him. But Weiss also becomes infected due to her need to feel perfect and how she views the Faunus, I guess. While the episode ends where Black and White does with her accepting Blake, her counterpart believes that she is simply lying and has buried all of her dreams, and thus Weiss has now fallen victim to Nightmare. It's a fairly simple setup and gets the point across. I can't speculate much after this. I mean, I'm excited to see what happens, but yeah, that's the setup. Something the series clearly benefits from is hindsight. A lot of characters show up and are used here well before they were in the original show. Weiss's entire family is here, Tai plays a much more prominent role, and so on. And while I like how this series was using these characters, it's one of those moments where I probably would have preferred a project like this be held off until the series was actually over, because by then you know the outline of what was trying to be done, all of the characters involved, what what their stories are meant to be, and so on. But I guess a show like this knows that it's not meant to be a remastered version. It's not the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood that cleaned up the original. It seems the people working on this are aware that they got a small little portion of a side story that they can tell, but at that point it feels a little unfortunate that 3 episodes were spent recapping. I get why they did it. You can actually just watch this without watching the original show. But because it's only 1 hour, it feels extremely rushed, like they knew the points in the story that they wanted to recap, but were ultimately just trying to set up and get to their story. They added a lot of scenes which I liked, but they took out even more. As a fan, I didn't miss anything and wasn't overwhelmed by the amount of characters getting thrown in my face because I already knew who they were. But for someone watching this for the first time, they might feel like they got a lot to grasp without much of it being expanded upon. I personally wouldn't have minded if they had just remastered all of Volume 1 with these new scenes and stuff like this that they were doing. But of course, I know that they don't have the budget to do that. I understand why it was like this, so it's unfortunate that a lot also gets left out. There's a lot of stuff in these 3 episodes that I just didn't mention. Penny, if you've watched my videos before, you'd know that I've never really been a big Penny fan. But here she was adorable. I love the way she acted here. I don't know why it's different. Maybe it's the voice acting or just the way it was animated. I've always been a dub over sub kind of guy, but with this series, I definitely feel like I'm going to continue watching it subbed, as I think it feels so much more fresh to me this way. I love the performances all of the actors gave, from the main girls to Penny, Jacques, Whitley, Ty. It's just a much different feeling while watching that I'm getting. I can't wait to see more from this series. I don't know how many episodes they're going to be. Let me know in the comments if that's been announced. But RWBY Ice Queendom had a great start. If you fell out of the series before, I think it's a great re-entry point to watch as a standalone product. Main RWBY is still the same, but with this, everything feels fresh and I think it's a good time. Anyway, moral of the episode is that Jean's fear is getting bullied by Pumpkin Pete.